गुड मॉर्निंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट। गनर शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। हाउ आर यू दिस मंडे मॉर्निंग? We're going to start off on the chink in the park armor. And the chink in the park armor has got a lot to worry about. And I'm enjoying my coffee and after breakfast, and I hope you're also having this, something nice to do or a good way to start the week. Right. Let's dig in. At the outset, I thought this, cartoon by Kuril was fantastic. Simply fantastic. It actually encapsulates the relationship between China and Pakistan. Pakistan is the actual, what it is? The rand with the eye of China. And that's how the relationship is going. The problem today is, I think both of them are going through a very tough spot in this illicit relationship. But we'll look at it. There's a lot of speculation as to when India will go to war with Pakistan. India will go to war with Pakistan when it suits India. That's the first thing which I must put across to every one of you who's watching this podcast. And that's up to India now. That's see. And how it will go to war with Pakistan is also up to India. I keep reminding everyone, war is beyond battle. Battle is confined to a space, but war is much beyond, and it's multi-domain in nature. So everything is going to come into place before a kinetic action takes place. In this whole story, there's a lot of speculation as to what will China do. Will China assist Pakistan? If so, how will it do? And there's a lot of commentary from China about how it's going to assist Pakistan, or what is at stake and how will it go about. What we'll do today is actually an extension of what I covered last week about the dilemmas China is facing in this entire India-Pakistan conflict. I'll continue those dilemmas. Those dilemmas have not gone away. In fact, they have enhanced. And as I see, and as things come out from China, and when you examine China and its own problems as of today, the chink in the park armor is weak. It has a lot to worry about. My view is China is caught between, a rock and a hard place. But let's go through the whole process and then the first thing is that, this chap Victor Gao. Victor Gao is some kind of a political commentator official political commentator of China, who keeps going all around the world and talking to everyone. And he's appeared on CNN, News 18, and see what he says. I mean, it's interesting. First, let's hear that.
When there were the Chinese CPEC projects that were attacked in Balochistan, and I saw the foreign ministry's statement, it did not mince any words. It certainly did not call Pakistan an ironclad brother in the aftermath of the attacks that killed Chinese nationals in Balochistan.
The point is very simple. We need to call for impartial and complete and thorough investigation into the background of this attack before any country should seize this opportunity to use this attack as the trigger for escalation of tensions or even conflict between India and Pakistan. Now, the third point I want to add, please, with your permission, is that China and Pakistan are all-weather ironclad allies. No one should second-guess this alliance between China and Pakistan. China will always come to Pakistan's help and assistance whenever Pakistan's sovereignty and territorial integrity will be threatened by any country. So this is a very serious matter. You're talking about a war between Pakistan and India on the one hand, and then you are talking about the ironclad alliance between China and Pakistan, and China's full commitment to defend Pakistan's sovereignty and territorial.
So he's talking of an impartial, investigation, and China's ironclad commitment to defend Pakistan's sovereignty. It suggests don't go into Pakistan. If anything happens to Pakistan, we will come to their rescue. Fine, that's one way of looking at it, and that's one might say that's a warning, but fundamentally it's a clear statement of fact from China on which side of the divide they stand on. They're ironclad brothers. Okay. Having said that, this commentary from RT is very, very interesting. And it talks of what China stands to lose in an India-Pakistan crisis. Remember, China has a lot at stake in Pakistan, and it is beyond Pakistan. And that is what this guy has put in perspective. What is he said? He says China does not want the region to become a hotbed of extremism or great power rivalry. Why? That's China's back door. Xinjiang, Tibet. If instability gets into this, China becomes completely unstable. And China is now threatened. Remember, that's what he says. He says instability in Kashmir or Pakistan's tribal regions poses a direct threat to China's internal stability and its western border. That's what I explained. And he says a war between India and Pakistan would cause serious damage to China as it would endanger the CPEC, destabilize Xinjiang, potentially draw in other global actors, undermining Beijing's long-term regional ambitions. Just think. Let me paint a scenario. If China enters the fray on Pakistan's side militarily, and India does a 1971 on it, what happened in 1971? When everyone failed India, India went and did a deal with Moscow. What if India does a similar deal with USA? And USA enters the fray in Kashmir. Like it has already entered the fray in Myanmar. It has already entered the fray in Afghanistan. Where does China go? See the larger implications of the problem with China. And then let me go back to something else. Go back to 2020. There's this chap called Wang Shida. Wang Shida is with SICR, that is China Institute of Contemporary International Relations. And he's a South Asia expert there. Now there, he wrote an article then. He says India is blinded by double confidence. That's what he wrote there. But my poser is the second part of the story. Is China worried about a double loss? What did he write then? He said, look, Article 370, when it was, promulgated, didn't affect Pakistan alone, it affected China. And that's why China got into the whole story. That's what this entire thing was. Right? This forced, as per them, promulgation of, or rather abrogation of Article 370 forced China into the Kashmir dispute. And, stimulated China and Pakistan to take counteraction. Okay, fine. It's very clear that Chinese interests were at stake even when we abrogated Article 370. There are many people who say why China came into Eastern Ladakh in 2020 was because of that. Be that as it may, let's come to today. What happens if Pakistan loses POK or Gilgit-Baltistan in this round? Well, India does what it wants. It can do it when it wants. What if that happens? What happens to China? Let me put the first thing. Of course, CPC will go, interests in Gilgit-Baltistan will go, Chinese presence in Gilgit-Baltistan will be threatened. All that. There's a larger issue which many people have missed out. Shaksgam Valley. What happens to Shaksgam Valley? What happens to Shaksgam Valley? When Pakistan ceded Shaksgam Valley to China, there's a rider in it. And the rider is the final status of Shaksgam Valley will be decided when the status of J&K is resolved. Okay? At that time, Pakistan put this, and that will now come to haunt them. What if GB falls? If GB falls, India and China have to talk of Shaksgam Valley. And we might say, look, this is no more yours, please return it. And then what happens? So there is a lot at stake for China. Okay. Then there's this article in NetEase, which says multiple rounds of fire have broken out on the LOC and all that. And then people have started saying, look, if China intervenes, India will send troops to Taiwan. Well, that's a reaction, an emotional reaction of people that, look, you do here something here, we'll do something there. But it is it has struck a chord in China. What's that chord? One China is at stake. As it is, India has diluted its stance on one China. We don't talk of one China anymore. What if we take this opportunity and say we don't believe in one China? We don't believe in the merger of Tibet. It was that MOU between during the Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government and Deng Xiaoping's government at that point of time, not Deng Xiaoping, I think it was Jiang Zemin's government at that point of time at the turn of the century, we signed this MOU. And that is when we sort of recognized Tibet as part of China. And they recognized Sikkim as part of India. That was the whole sub-cheese. But then that treaty is no more valid today. Why? When China invaded Eastern Ladakh in 2020, all treaties which were held between treaties, understandings, whatever you call it, between India and China were finished. We have not gone back to them again. We have nowhere even in Kazan, when you see everything, all the statements which have come out between India and China, those treaties, MOUs, understandings, whatever deals remain in abeyance. They have not been reinstated. We're taking it case by case. What if tomorrow we say we don't agree to that MOU because you anyway violated all MOUs, which means we de-recognize Tibet. If that happens, there's a political problem for China. Forget about one China, we're then talking of many Chinas. They realize it. Can we play this? I think we should. Why do you think I'm talking of all this? I think we have more arrows up our sleeve than what we normally think. Most of us think militarily, but I think politically, because politically, China is more vulnerable than militarily. And that is what we have to exploit. Okay. Then this fellow Lin Min Wang. There are about 3-4 chaps in China who keep talking. And you'll see, वही 4-5 हैं जो बात करते हैं. Not everyone is an expert on China, on India and China. They are limited. So what does this Lin Min Wang say? He says the possibility of India seeking a low intensity war is still quite high. So he's only talking of a low intensity war. They're not expecting a high intensity war. So when you think of a low intensity war, yes, they are not prepared for a high intensity war. Then of course he parrots the Chinese line and the Paki line. He says people in Kashmir want independence because all that. And India is doing all this because it wants to externalize the situation and cause unrest in Pakistan. And all this is being sold within China to prepare China for an eventuality. So what you see this duality, in fact, this complete diametric opposite approach. The ambassador here, you see his tweets yesterday, day before, and all. They talk of India, China, getting together and all that. But internally, all their commentary is completely anti-India. And for them, a guy like Praveen Sani, look at this. Praveen Sani is a famous Indian internet celebrity author, that dolt, who sold himself to China. I'm ashamed of him that he was an ex-army officer, and that too from artillery. I'm absolutely ashamed of this buffoon called Praveen Sani. He's not only sold himself to China, he's also sold himself to Pakistan. Of course, they keep saying they want an investigation into Pahalgam, war, and all that. Interestingly, he's selling this churan to people in China. Internationally, no one supports India. Well, let me put it, Klaus did this analysis, about which General Dushin spoke yesterday. More than 51% of countries internationally who responded to the survey have expressed solidarity with India. Who's expressed solidarity with Pakistan? Turkey, China, to some extent North Korea. Not even North Korea. North Korea has also not come. Not even Iran. Who else? Some odd 8-bit country. Right? And then last, he says, more importantly, not far from Indian controlled Kashmir, Chinese troops have been stationed there since 2020. And that will play a role in balancing and promoting peace. And after all, India needs to take into account China's feelings and interests. We completely agree with this. India must take into consideration China's interests and feelings. But China must also understand where it stands. Those guys who are in Eastern Ladakh have been there for the past 4.5 years. What did they do? They came with the whole idea that they will do what they want and they went back. Why? Because they couldn't do anything. And if you read the internal commentary in China, you'll understand there were questions on Xi Jinping. You have put so many people up there, and what have they achieved? Nothing. On the other hand, you earned the enmity of India. So come earn our enmity again. Not that it has vanished. So this is Lin Min Wang. And then there's this interesting commentary from South China Morning Post. It says how a Trump deal and Pakistan could derail India's warming ties with China. So there is a connect between what's happening with the Trump deal, or rather the tariff war, and Pakistan. So we'll talk of the tariff war and where China is a little later, but let's talk of this first. Then he brings in a new story, or rather new angle, which many of us don't understand, or they understand because it affects them. You see, they are worried about destabilization of their western boundaries, Xinjiang and Tibet, and that's at stake. They understand that what happens if multinational players come or international players come into this region. So far, it is contained, isn't it? But if what happens, the West steps in here. And then he says India is an important player in the global south. Okay. And this conflict will set back on India's ties with Beijing or Beijing's ties with India. Right. Now, which means they'll lose India completely, which means that India will swing to US. Is it acceptable to China? That's what he says. China could respond by supporting Pakistan. If that happened, it would be a setback to the improvement in bilateral relations between India and China. And remember, they all are thinking, they're thinking fellows. Nothing is lost on them. India and China are founding members of Brics. Without the I in the Brics, there's no Brics. So, how much can China come and support Pakistan? We'll answer that in the end. Then this chap, Lan Jungshui, he's the director of Asia Pacific Studies in China Institute of International Studies. He opines very clearly that India has influence in the global south. And if China-India relations go down south, Chinese influence in the global south will be contended. People will start taking positions there. And it's not easy to push back India, especially in the global south. Because people trust us, people don't trust them. And then this character, Lin Min Wang, he's spoken different languages at different places. I'll show you 2-3 of his statements. He says, recent developments might not have a major impact on China-India relations. That means what? That China will take a back step. So Pakistan might not get what it wants from China ultimately. Because China will start thinking of its own. And then India's growing closeness to United States, including its passive role in Brics, has persisted for many years, and the Chinese side fully is mentally prepared for it. So same thing. Every guy who writes talk of this. Then this Liu Zhongyi, he is a completely anti-Indian writer. He says, local people in Kashmir are dissatisfied with Modi government, Hindu nationalism, and all that, and deprive local people of their rights by allowing external people and Hindus especially to resettle in Kashmir. So he is taking a position on the Kashmir issue. Is this the Chinese position? There's no talk. Interestingly, Chinese government has not spoken. All these mouthpieces are, muttering here and there. So, we'll come to it a little later. Okay. Then same guy, he says India has poor skill and has set a very bad precedent. And what is this? All that he's saying. In this article in Guancha, again for local consumption, he says India may hope to launch a so-called surgical strike against Pakistan as it did in 2016 and 19 to calm feelings about the domestic people. But at present, about 70% of Pakistan weapons and equipment have been Chinese-sized, and India's weapons and equipment have been inferior to those of Pakistan, so there is no victory. So he's convincing. They are also worried. If these Chinese weapons get used and something happens to them, then their whole story is over. So beforehand, this guy is telling people within China that, look, we have given adequate support to Pakistan. Most of Pakistan's army is based on Chinese inventory, about which I spoke. I spoke to you last week, where I've said about 60 to 70% of new equipment is from China, and there's an increasing element of Turkish equipment coming into Pakistan, and about 20 to 25% is legacy equipment from the West. So that's there, but this Chinese equipment we all know has got problems. It's not reliable. It's never been tested in war. To some extent, they're worried about it. Inka pole khul jayega. What if the reality comes and the Chinese equipment doesn't function? And that's one of the problems Pakistan is facing. None of this equipment they've got can be relied upon. And we'll talk about this maybe tomorrow or today evening. Let's see. Then, of course, this is the earlier one which I spoke of last time, but I must reiterate it in this overall context. China is ready to help ease India-Pakistan tensions at a fine line. Same Lin Wenwang. He again now comes and points that China has a limited role, and India will not accept Chinese intervention. Okay, and he also they're very clear that India has views itself as a nation on par with China. So we will not accept their mediation. Why should we accept a mediation of China between India and Pakistan when we know that China sides Pakistan? There's no way, right? So the last part is interesting, and that's something which I think all of us should understand. And based on what I've said so far, today China views Pakistan as a case which is lost. There's no doubt about it, right? Once upon a time, China used to use Pakistan as a counterbalance to India. With the way India has grown, Pakistan is no more a counterbalance to India. China is threatened. Why? Again, same. I go back to the four. They've invested a lot in CPEC. They want Gwadar. If they want Gilgit-Baltistan, there are problems in Balochistan. If India starts doing something to Pakistan differently, that is, instead of going into a stupid war, do something different. And I'll talk of it today evening. Right? Use a hammer and anvil approach. What is a hammer and anvil approach? Join me in the evening. I'll explain it to you. And then Pakistan gets blown away. What happens to China? That's their worry. That's what comes out of all their talk. Okay. And then, of course, Li Zhongyi, says China will play a dominant role in promoting peace. And he says, China will not allow wars to take place in its neighborhood. And, Pakistan is China's ironclad brother, this, that, all that. And then he also says, Pakistan is being threatened internally by BLA and terrorist groups and Taliban and all that. So you have this duality coming. One lot understands that Pakistan is very weak. This is coming from China and that their interests are at stake. The other lot wants to be aggressive. We will do this to India. We'll help Pakistan. The problem in India is we are looking to the second lot. What if China intervenes? That's the thinking. I think we should change. Right. Already during the Brics forum, we've given them an indication. The Brics didn't condemn the Pahalgam incident, and our external affairs minister didn't go there. Clear indication. Okay. And then our prime minister has not gone to Russia also. In a couple of days, victory parade, where Xi Jinping is going to be the prima donna there. We're not gone. It's a message not only to China, it's a message also to Russia. Important, because Russia and Pakistan, their ties seem to be improving. We need to put things across to Russia also. We've helped you. You either stay out of it or help us. Be clear. Well, Russia is playing its own game. On 10th, we'll talk of it. So ultimately, when you look at it, what is it? China today is a heavy body with short legs. When people say, will China interfere on the LAC? My view is this. It was there on the LAC for 4 years. What did it do? What could it do? It tried many attempts. It got beaten and went back. It could not sustain itself on the LAC, so it had to go back. So what will he do now by coming back? Or revisit 2020? That too, when so many troops, Indian troops are there, what can he do? Yeah, he'll do some mobilization and all that. I don't think he can do that also. Why? We'll talk. One thing internationally which has come out is the Chinese military or the PLA does not have reach. It cannot go beyond its own borders. PLA has not acted beyond the South China Sea and the East China Sea. It succumbed to Somali pirates. News has come out that Chinese vessels have been captured by Somali pirates, and these people have gone and paid ransom to get them out. Despite that base at Djibouti, they have not taken any action. Despite the fact that these people helped Houthis, despite the fact that these people have been helping Iran, despite the fact that they've been having their naval ships in Gwadar. Politically, China is marginalized in the Middle East. Completely. Yeah, it has business interests. That's a different story. It is also being leveraged out of America or the Americas, Panama, Greenland, Mexico, Argentina. It's happening. And there is a lot of talk. When you look at the Chinese news media, they're worried about this. You will find in any Chinese media one corner to India-Pakistan issue. But there are 10 headlines about what? America. They're worried. China today is fighting with its back to the wall. And we forget that it's a huge trade war where they have existential problems. Now, when you have existential problems, you think you'll come and, militarily help Pakistan? There are problems. And, some might argue, oh, they did it in 1962 when there was a famine in China. The Great Leap was the Great Leap Forward was going on in China. Despite all the hardships, Mao attacked India in 62. Well, that was 62. That was Mao, not Xi Jinping. That was a China which was impoverished and it had a revolutionary urge. Today, China's aims are far different. He wants to have a Sinocentric world and rule the economy and all that nonsense. If his economy goes, he will not go fighting. He might go fighting, but his economy is now under severe threat. And there's another issue. China has been repeatedly attacked in Pakistan itself by Pakistanis, not by someone else. Okay. Pakistanis who are not happy with Pakistan. So where does that go? You can't forget that. Okay. So China has severe, restrictions. We somehow in India, this is not lost sight of. It has a lot at stake in Pakistan. I've explained to you. CPEC Gwadar is one part of the story. Tibet and Xinjiang is the major part of the story. Its position in the world is the greater part of the story. Is there a case for us to open that? I think so. We are strong on that. Is there like I said earlier once, today, the way they have assessed our infrastructure, they feel the Chinese feel that it is no more a case that they will invade India. There's also a case that India will invade China. And they have now put in place defensive plans. They have something called a 30-kilometer line, 30-kilometer defense line. They have a 200-kilometer defense line, and they have a beyond 200 kilometers. They have a layered defense. They never had this layered defense earlier. They have it now. Why? They have a problem. So we have to understand where China is. So we have now looked at China, we have looked at India, Pakistan, and China's stakes in Pakistan. But let's look at the Chinese trade war and where it's going, because then you'll get a realistic idea as to where it's going. And does it have the bandwidth to look towards Pakistan? That's why I said China has a lot at stake, but does it have the bandwidth to handle it? You know, I showed this earlier also. Trump is very clear in this whole story. He says USA or the people in USA, children in USA can do with two less dolls. But people who are manufacturing those dolls in China can't afford it. And he's put his foot down. If you see his statements of yesterday, day before, and all that, he's dug his heels in. He's very clear. You heard what General Dushan said yesterday. Trump and his USA and this government consider China as their rival. And what do you do with a rival? You kill that rival. And that is US mentality. And that's how it has existed from a long time. That's how it dealt with the Nazi Germany. That's how it dealt with communist Russia or USS. That's how it's now started dealing with China. And they know China well. Okay. Right. So what else? You see the problems which China is facing internally. They had their C919 aircraft. China spoke hell of a lot about it. Europe is not clearing it. So Chinese 919 aircraft can't go to Europe. They can't go to Europe. They can't be sold in Europe. So they thought they'll undercut Boeing and Airbus and start selling these aircraft to all over the world. No one will buy them. If the Europeans don't accept them, they don't accept these aircraft landing there. Forget about US. US will not allow it only. So then these aircraft can only loaf around China. And that too, they need parts from the West. These people, I've already said, they banned Boeing. I mean, or rather than they cancelled the deal with Boeing, others are buying. Not only Malaysia, now India is also looking at buying those aircraft. Air India is looking at it. So suddenly, this aircraft scenario or the aviation scenario in China is taken a hit. Now the dollar is swinging up and down. That creates uncertainty. Uncertainty for China is dangerous. Uncertainty for everyone, anyone and everyone is dangerous. But for China, it's bad. China is used to setting their agenda. That's what we said. China thinks deep. It has got a plan, vision and all that. And it has its 3 warfare strategy, this, that, public information, all that. It sets the agenda. Suddenly, China is now finding itself in a situation where the agenda is being set by Trump and they're reacting. And Trump talks one thing today and talks another thing tomorrow and a fourth thing day after tomorrow. They're not able to handle it. Okay. Before Trump came, they made a plan as to how to handle Trump. But he came and completely changed the whole thing. So they are at a loss what to do. And then there's a new thing which is coming up. And this is important. It's a sentiment of the people. 4 years back, 3 years back, 2 years back, people in China said, go and get hold of Taiwan. we should go, nationalism and all that. And Xi Jinping repurposed the Chinese nationalism towards Taiwan and made it the cornerstone of his entire talk in the 20 Party Congress in October 22. Security, nationalism, all that. The basic contract between the Chinese Communist Party and the people, what was it? You give me your freedoms and I'll give you prosperity. Xi Jinping changed that, took prosperity out and brought in nationalism and security. You give me your freedom, I'll give you security and nationalism. That is now coming at stake, and there's an internal survey of China. People are not interested. Why go to Taiwan? Yeah? Mere ko khana do. Give me the basics. That's not happened. Property. Trump's tariff have thrown the property rebound. People started talking, in China, property sectors rebounding, this, that, all that. Sorry, it's gone. No one wants to buy property. No one can sell property. They want to sell. Everyone wants to sell. And stories which coming out of China say that, look, people are not getting even 50% of what they had invested. And they have a property for which there's a mortgage which they can't pay. So naturally, people who wants to go to Taiwan and fight a war when they're not able to live well. And now suddenly, China has started looking at proposal to scale down the tariff war. Their outer thing is very thing. Oh, Trump has blinked, Trump has not blinked. Trump is playing a fiddle. It is China which is reacting. वो कभी ऊपर कर देता है, कभी नीचे कर देता है tariff. China doesn't know what to do. Now China is saying, okay, we'll talk. Now, there's a very interesting thing which happened in the Canton Fair. Now, Canton Fair is one of the biggest fairs when traditionally every year for export. And China is now an export-driven economy. It's no more manufacturing export-driven economy. Okay, not an investment-based economy. That's failed. Not a consumption economy because no one is consuming. So what happened? Canton Fair, many people could not afford to be there. And China has had to refund money there. And this comes in Caxon. Caxon Global says, the talk in Canton Fair is all about Trump tariff. उसने क्या fit किया इनको? The sum total of the Canton Fair, which is a, temperature guide to what's happening in the Chinese export thing, is this. The attendance in the Canton Fair will be high. A lot of people are there. But how many orders? No one knows. There are two types. There are two types of people, Americans who are going there. Those who have gone there, seen everything, and said thank you and gone back. Those who have gone there and said, okay, we'll buy it, but not now. When the thing comes down, then we'll talk. Right? And you have to understand, these 3, 4, 5 articles tell this, that American orders were the most stable and profitable. And that's 40% of their export goes to America, either directly or through Vietnam, all that. Small factories have already suspended their operations. This is the state of China. People are not earning. Okay. See the last one. He says the sudden halt to orders coupled with monthly running costs has forced businesses out to close. They can't afford to wait to find out the results of the trade negotiations. It doesn't matter how the trade negotiation ends. Their businesses are closed. Can they reopen it? So China is going to go through certain fundamental changes. And those fundamental changes have brought uncertainty. In this uncertain period, will China go and start fighting with Pakistan? Or for Pakistan? Against India? Which it wants. After all, you need to remember, China wants India for trade, which, okay, Shanghai, there's no consumption in Shanghai. They're holding mega events. Come and buy. This is a shock. I'm exposing you people, and look, from what I did last time to now, these are the new things which have come up. The situation in China is only going bad to worse. We have to understand and appreciate what China is up to, or rather, this is yesterday's headline in Guangzhou. Panic spreads in Vietnamese factories. Customers have begun to withdraw orders. What's the use of waiting for 90 days? Guangzhou, which is a hardcore communist media platform, which talks only for China and completely against USA, has come out with this panic in Vietnam. And look at this. This picture in South China Morning Post encapsulates the route or the escape route from tariffs. So if you put tariffs on China, they'll dig a hole, go to Vietnam and go. But now the tariffs are coming on Vietnam. And all this is coming in South China Morning Post. Very interesting. Why? South China Morning Post is owned by Jack Ma, Alibaba, and all that nonsense. The same Jack Ma who was canned. So there's a group, political group within China, which is not giving favorable news on China or for the PRC or for Xi Jinping and gang. So there's a political slugfest going on. We have to understand this. Some of these articles which are coming out, I couldn't have dreamt that they'll come out in China or the Chinese news sometime back. There's a shift. Look at that youth unemployment. This was the status with that break and all that. Now, if you compound that break, it will come like this. There's youth unemployment is at the highest. Now, these chaps who are unemployed can be sent to Pakistan for fighting the Taliban. Think of it. There's interesting commentary I read by, there's a president of Shanghai University of France of Finance and Economics. Next 5 years are the key for China, as per him. And China needs to be alert to 7 major issues. I've just put the headlines. Maybe one of these days I'll analyze each of this when the heat comes out of this India-Pakistan business. He's identified 7 problem areas which China has to navigate. It's very interesting to see what the story is about. Then, of course, their factory activity is contracted. Naturally, there's no export, so factories are closing. What that fellow said earlier, now this chap says in a different article. It's not a different article. This is the Chinese statistics which have come out. It's only being reported in this article. Cargo shipments are gone. Flight bookings are gone. In fact, all Chinese airlines are in the red. I wouldn't be surprised if one of these Chinese airlines starts collapsing soon. And this is from Kexin. Okay. Yikai Global. Yeah, this is Yikai Global. What does it say? Investors in China and consumers are going in to buy platinum and gold. They don't want to buy flats. They don't want to buy shares. They don't want to buy anything. What the money they have, they're saying, look, I'll have gold. I'll keep platinum. When that happens, that money is not going to come out. We know in which Indian household will sell gold. Do you think Chinese are different? They'll hoard gold because they are unsure of what's going to happen in their future. This is China. This is a realistic thing about China. And they're worried about their sinking population. Northeast China's population is shrinking at the fastest. And if they don't have enough population there, Northeast China, they don't have crops. You're talking of the Yellow River region. the North China plains fertile. They have to. There are a lot of things linked. ये देखो, ये सब हो रहा है, problem हो रहा है. So there are Ponzi schemes coming in for the elderly. This is from Caxin. This is not Shanghai, the South China Morning Post and all. Caxin is a respected, stable economic platform for China, and they're talking of for elderly care Ponzi schemes coming out. They've been running it. It's now coming out. Why? Because there's no money. When does a Ponzi scheme, fail? Just think. There's so many of Ponzi schemes which run in India also or all over the world. When do they fail? When that expanding ring stops expanding. That's what is happening. And this is about these Ponzi schemes have duped the elders. And this is an in-depth study, a feature in Caxin. Again, now Caxin comes out and says air cargo firms, they're also gone. It's not only passengers which I spoke of earlier, air cargo also. When all this is happening, the economy is in a bad shape. Let's be very clear. And I don't think the economy will come back to normal in a hurry. Okay? I mean, if someone thinks so, he's a fool. In the midst of all this, you have the problem of PLA. We know that PLA has been this Mia Hawa has been removed, Hividong is removed, 50% of CMC is not in place. So many people are under purge. Which army can fight in such a situation? They'll come and fight for Pakistan. Now they have come out with a new story. Why is this? Why are all these purges going on and corruption thing going on and anti-corruption drive? They're preparing for war. Which war? They're having a war within. There's a political problem. There's a military problem within China, and in that condition, he'll come to war here. And let me put it in a different direction. Yesterday we spoke of USA supporting the Arakan army in Myanmar. Why is it doing? Why is it doing so? If Arakan army can destabilize the China-Myanmar economic corridor, it can destabilize that region. And if it can destabilize those areas which are bordering Myanmar, then China's grip on critical minerals will go, rare earths will go. Today, China depends for rare earths from Myanmar. I did this program. If that hold goes, China's hold on the rare earth goes. Not light rare earth materials, but heavy rare earth materials. Dysporium. Those are all in Myanmar. So don't think USA is doing something in Myanmar just for fun of it. That rare earth element story is here. Just think USA tomorrow does this here. It's gone back to Bagram base. It destabilizes Afghanistan, fingers Pakistan. And where does it leave China? China must be worried about that. If I were a Chinese, I would be worried about that. And there's a problem brewing with Japan. In Senkakus. The Chinese call it Diaos, but there's a Senkakus. And if Senkakus goes into a problem, Taiwan will go into a problem. If Taiwan goes into a problem, Philippines will go into a problem. That means China has a major military issue. There's also a problem between South Korea and China, which has come up in the LOC. So Chinese military is committed there. So they want to open a new front against with India. Welcome. The way I look at it, it's an opportunity for India. I've said earlier also, we are, people talk, what can India respond to a two-front situation? We are in a two-front situation. The way I look at it, we are in a two-front situation. Aren't we handling it well? You see Pak hyperventilating. Chinese are reacting. Have we reacted? Has the government of India reacted? No. The government of India is doing what it wants to do. Yeah, we can always debate on whether it's doing the right thing or the wrong thing, whether we are doing everything as, and is our strategic communication good, bad, or ugly. But fundamentally, we are calling the shots at this point of time. The initiative is with India, and I think we should keep it that way. What can China do realistically with Pakistan? Because the problem is Pakistan. Okay. And I think today we should focus on Pakistan. That's my view. And we should finish off Pakistan. Because finishing off Pakistan will have an effect on China also. Because the Chinese interests are at stake. And this is a great opportunity for us. So what can China do with Pakistan? Diplomatic assistance, it will be rest assured. Whether it's in any multilateral forum or in UN or everywhere, diplomatic assistance to Pakistan is a given. Deal with it. Can we start countering it? We must. We must. Very clearly. Right. China will give a full spectrum ISR backstop. Okay. Surveillance, intelligence, and reconnaissance. China has a strong setup. Let's be very clear. We should face reality. Whether in space or on ground or everything, China has got this capability. That capability will be shared with Pakistan with no limits. Let's be very clear. Political help will be limited. It will not be full political help. It will not be full political help because China has its own problems. Military help will be only in a dire situation. Logistics help will be there. Okay. So this is what you can expect from China in the current conditions. Let's not think that China will come and intervene and this and that and all that. No. China might have instigated Pakistan to do what it did. On that, I have not had a doubt. But I don't think either Pakistan or China expected these outcomes. They would have thought, keep India imbalanced by a terrorist strike, show to the world that India is not good enough, India is weak, all that. I think we've just done the opposite. So there are a lot of things happening. We need to understand what China is up to and handle it. Yesterday I spoke about the US angle with General Dushan. Today I'm talking about China for the second time. This is not the first time, this is the second time in a week. I'll continue with this. Right? Today evening, we'll talk of how India needs to approach, use a hammer and anvil approach on Pakistan. The hammer and anvil approach on Pakistan needs to be understood as to how we actuate it. And in that, China has very little role to play. And then we'll take it forward where we are going. Because this story is not going to end in a hurry. India needs to have patience, needs to have confidence to do what it has to do. India has the strength to do what it wants to do. Thank you. Thank you for all of you who patiently listened to this. I'll take a few questions now. Yeah, let me go to the top and take questions. Yeah. Yeah, a military deal will easily follow if China gets in the way. I completely agree with you. That's what China has to contend with. Yeah. Okay. So strategically, this is the best time to attack Pakistan. We can test our weapons and strategy we built in the last 5 years against China. Pakistan has only 2 or 3 days of ammunition. We can control. All that I agree. But we don't have to do anything in a hurry. Sit. That basic thing is have patience. This is a time where we patiently dismantle Pakistan. Patiently dismantle Pakistan. That's the watchword I'm using. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, due to 40,000 Chinese workers, some got married to local Pakistani girls, are now forced to rear pig farms and pork has become. Yeah, okay. These things continue. Yeah. Look, India's cold start doctrine is dead. Now it's late start doctrine. Cold start doctrine never took off. Let me be very clear. I was in service. We knew that cold start doctrine won't work. It's okay, but it served a purpose. Today, you don't need that. You can do many more other things. Yeah, chain equipment not battle tested. Pak pilots and tank commanders are not trained. Can't believe they're willing to take this risk. Obviously, Munir doesn't care about Pakistani Fauji lives. Yeah, I agree with you. So that's why I'm going to do two episodes. One today evening on the hammer and anvil approach that we have to adopt. And second, I'm going to do a character sketch of Munir. You have to understand this fellow, what he's doing, right? So he's quite one dimensional. And that one dimensionality, if you understand the rest, everything will fall into place. General, can you discuss North Korea China relations? Things don't appear quite right there. Is Bharat trying to build bridges between Trump and Kim? Very interesting thing, Shani. Still, I think you're right in this. You're 100% right. I'll do this. I'll do this because you have to understand. In fact, I'll do a thing on Korean Peninsula and the threat to China. I'll go one better, and maybe I'll do it one of these days. Within the week, I'll do it. That's a promise. Do you agree this is the first time in 75 years India is more prepared than Pak militarily? Its weapons are technologically superior and we have a dollar to fight the war. No, I don't agree with you because we were far better off than them in 1971. We were more prepared and we sorted them out. This is okay. It's now the second time that we are in this comprehensive situation where we have all things put in place to sort out Pakistan. It's relative. That's the same relativity doesn't hold good against China. Remember that. As per Chat GPT, the cost of war for a week India direct military expenditures is 650 million per day, totaling about 4.55 billion a week. If this is what's going to cost us, just think if can Pakistan afford this? Pak direct military expenditures 250 million per day, totaling about 1.75 billion over a week. You have to increase that. So there are methods to do it. We'll not talk of it, but we'll take it further. Hope the Bharat government will seek placing Pakistan in the blacklist in the FATF. Yes, I agree with you. We need to. I'm sure we are doing it. India should act on the evidence first and then share it, or share the evidence immediately to put Pakistan on the back foot in global diplomacy? To act, we don't need evidence. Let's be very clear. You need evidence for global diplomacy. You need evidence to put the chap in FATF list. Okay? For that you need. So you have to take a call. That is why it is important for us to not be in a hurry to go in for kinetics. Whether we'll have the evidence to convince people that this has happened is one part of the story. Whether even despite the evidence that people will be convinced, because there are other moving parts today in international geopolitics. Okay. Whether anyone else will take action against Pakistan is a question mark. So we have to take action on our own. And overall, this is the best circumstances under which we can do. इंडिया को लॉन्ग रेंज एंटी टैंक मिसाइल को जैम से कम 50 किलोमीटर की मार्क क्षमता रखते हैं, मास प्रोड्यूस करनी होगी युद्ध करने से पहले। नॉट, वो सब है हमारे पास, फिक्र मत करो। Can Turkey keep playing both sides? It will play both sides, and I'll talk of it later. We'll talk of it. We'll talk of it today evening. Can you create an update on Pak troops moving to India and their posture, and also how that impacts Afghan? Yeah, I'll talk of it. I'll talk of it, not now, next week. It's not a great thing. Okay. Karthik, why China never ever bothered to be friendly with India, especially from the times of the Nehru government when we went out of our way? Well, remember, it's not Nehru government, even before that. India's rise is a threat to China. Okay. China will accept India only if it is subservient to it, which we have never been prepared to do so. And that's the end of the story. Notwithstanding the fact that the Nehru government lost the 62 war, Nehru government was never for China initially. I mean, initially we let them go into the UN and all that like fools. But after that, we were never with them. From then to now. Right? So, we'll leave it at that. Chinese government will never be our friends. We can never trust them. Look, imagine a friendly India and China, 3 billion plus human population, and both would have been the engines of world for the first. This is being, altruistic and, hopeful and all that. Let's face facts. In the kind of realism in which we are living, this is just out of question. Yeah, can you elaborate on the significance of MOUs, Z's, and then ASEAN? I explained this to you in the last video. What happened when Xi Jinping went to Malaysia and signed MOU? Immediately after that, Malaysia went and bought Boeing from USA, and they said we are open. What happened to Vietnam? Vietnam went and bought F-13s from USA and said, no, we'll renegotiate. And they have said, we will not allow transshipment. Even Cambodia, which signed a MOU with MOU with China. 1 week after that, Japanese ships entered Riam base, which was built by China. So that was a failure. Let's be very clear. I've explained this in great detail in the last video on the Chinese dilemma. A 1 week war with goal of capturing POK is militarily possible in part, but full occupation is unlikely with prolonged war. Nuclear escalation risks peaks by D6-7. India may win tactically, but globally facing. Yeah, these are all hypothetical situations. I wish ChatGPT could have won the war for us. Can I have your email ID? Yeah, it's there. I've given my email ID in the YouTube channel. Have a look at it. Hmm. Yeah, where are the question? This will be a multi-front war. India, Pakistan, China, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Myanmar, all will be involved. But no one's will know who is with who or no, it won't be that way. We need to understand this fundamental problem is with Pakistan. The secondary problem is with China. The others are all part players in that. They'll be satellites. We'll handle them. There's no problem. The good thing is we are able to foresee this and handle it. When we were earlier speculating, can we handle China? What will happen if Pakistan does? Now we are able to do it. That's the thing. You have strategic confidence now. So the headline says that Chinese are going for silver and platinum as gold prices have been very volatile. They are able to trust gold. Yeah, they are in a very bad shape, Srinivas. You are absolutely right. They are in a very bad shape. We don't understand it. If you understand how poorly the Chinese people are off, then you'll understand the risks China faces and PLA faces and the PRC faces and the CCP faces in coming to assist Pakistan in any meaningful manner. ये बात को होता रहता है, doesn't matter. Can India want China to vacate Gwadar as India has right to attack anywhere in Pakistan? Look, you got an interesting proposition, Abhishek. I must tell you this. What India needs to do is tell China to vacate GB because that's disputed territory. Ask China to give back Shaksgam Valley because it's ours, it's not theirs. We should formally ask for it. There we have legal rights to do so. So these 2-3 things we can do. Yeah, if China is the instigator, then doesn't it set a precedent for unknown gunmen to attack Han ethnic Chinese in Xinjiang? Are CCP living? Yeah, that's the worry. Are CCP living in a glass house? What makes them so cocksure? That's the worry for China. That's why China cannot do things beyond a point. Is India not acting because we don't know how to deal with loiter ammunitions and drones that Pakistan has been? No. That's nonsense. In case of a major conflict with India, in case of a major conflict, India has a lot to lose, whereas Pakistan has nothing to lose, and China has everything to gain. We need to be cautious and avoid warmongering and bring down our adversary economically. Yeah, I agree with you completely. That's why I said we need to play a different game altogether. That's the most important part of this whole story. Should political leadership in India put checks on media regarding their blabbering on TV to shape narrative with India bypassing? We need to. I think we've already started seeing this happening. They've already said don't show live locations and all. Slowly it will come about. Munir is the same one dimensionality like Yahya Khan. Just wait, Ashok. I'm putting together a character sketch of Munir. I'll get it out within a few days. A matter of 3-4 days. Do you think CID is best? HQ9 can't use. Yeah. We need to put CID in place. Okay. We need to put our CID in place so that Pakistani can't react when our air goes in. But the way I look at it, there is time for it. I don't think we should use our air in a hurry. If you can do other things first, then the air can come in. Normally, the air war precedes all other war, but I think here we should put air at the end because you have better control over escalation if you sequence the air in a different manner. Will we do a different RIEE deal with new broken back pieces of Pakistan? Yeah, possible. How should India handle the Chinese dumping mechanism in India? Just heavy tariffs and ban it. Just ban it. There's no harm. Industrialists can be interested in Chinese investments, but we should come down on them with a danda. Let's have very clear ideas about it. Yeah, to act, you don't need evidence. We are clear. You need evidence only for global diplomacy. Do you think China can fight a war with India jointly with Pakistan? No. All that. Don't go to that level. I've told you the whole story. I've told you. Yeah, Xi Jinping will use this war to divert his internal problem, but unfortunately, I don't think he will get to that level. He doesn't have that capability. The risks of getting into a war with India are very high. How can India reduce its dependency on China for medical API and heavy machinery? What can be done by the government to increase in new generation industry to kick? That's something the industry has to be kicked into. Your policy has to be good. Something which the government has not been able to do for so long. This is a weakness of our government. Okay. And I've been screaming that exactly what you're saying, Prasad, is what I've been screaming about for the past 5 years. Yeah. Nice idea and creative. Just buy a few F-35 and package ISR and stealth. That's one option. Okay, that's one option. There are many more options with this. In your estimate, do you think GOI is doing enough to assuaging public expectations? Hardly anyone in the larger public will be aware of your depth of analysis, which will be driving GOI decisions. You have a point. Somewhere, the government has to come out and say, look, this is what we're going to do to Pakistan. The larger thing. And the government and the politicians and our leaders have to come out and say, this is our broad plan. This time it is a fight to the finish, and we are going to sort them out. And our thing has just started. And tell people, be patient. We're going to do what we have to do. Somewhere they have to come and communicate that. Yeah, Chinese militia fishermen are located 11 miles from Indian Navy exercise informing Pak Navy. How could it affect Indian battle scenario? Well, if they come so close, they are vulnerable. If China does something, we can do something to them. Then you see, the moment China enters this officially, those chaps are at stake. Why is USA going back to what we want peace between India and Pakistan? USA has interest in Pakistan. USA needs Pakistan so that China is contained. USA needs Pakistan because to contain Iran. Okay, there's so many things. The location of Pakistan is important. To control this geopolitical location, USA will hold Pakistan. And plus, also remember, Pakistan has deep connect with the USA. It's had for the past 75 years. Those links won't vanish. Okay, that's how it is. Thanks a lot, Aram. thanks a lot for joining me. Yeah, as a member, Elmo D. This is the best analysis I have seen so far on this issue. Thanks a lot. That's a compliment. I track China very closely, and I would suggest all of you who are watching me for the first time join in. I track China from an Indian point of view. I also track China from a different point of view. Ultimately, whatever China does, we have to be very clear that look, what is there in it for us? How do you handle China? We need to know how to handle China. We need to have that. We have to have that strategic confidence of being able to handle China. For that, we need to know what the Chinese are speaking. Yeah, Balkrishna Gupta, excellent analysis. Thank you. You also commented for the first time. I'm glad that new people are coming and giving comments. Come join the discussion. If you see, I'm not too bothered whether you guys put super stickers or not and all that for answering questions. I take a lot of time to answer questions. Yeah, does India have ability to see at least near location and IB use? Yeah, we have. Don't know. Please understand, as far as Pakistan is concerned, we completely outmatched them militarily. I'll talk of it as we go along. Yeah, 500 watching, only 300 likes. Upvote the video. Thanks a lot, Sparkly. I'm so glad that you asked. And my request to everyone is, if you like this video, press the like button. I would request more of you to join Ghana Shot as members. And I would also request more of you to subscribe to Ghana Shot, because you'll find our analysis is with the best of military minds. Most of my analysts who come on my show are not those civilians or not those guys who you see in other channels. I'll give you people who run the business in India. I'm being very clear. I talk based on our knowledge of having handled India and Pakistan and various other situations of people having been in battle. I've been in battle myself, that thing, and having managed the affairs of this nation militarily and also contributed to its diplomacy. So you're going to get some high level talk. This is not just an old man's retired thing. And all of us who come, for example, General Dushyant and he's the head of CLAWS, which is the leading think tank of Army. And I'm also visiting fellow there, that's there in my thing. And we do a lot. And in IIT also we do a lot for the Army. So we are all current. We are retired but current. That's how it is. Thanks a lot, Jairam. Just continue being with us, and I'll come back in the evening. Let me see if I can put it together about the hammer and anvil concept, which we need to use against Pakistan. Till then, thank you. Good morning. Have a great day. And those of you who are abroad from US and all, have a great dinner and enjoy a good sleep. Good night, good morning, wherever you are. Jai Hind.